Well, here we are. I'm Tom Osman, and this is Whatever Comes Next. It's the podcast where I explore the world of underground and independent music making. And on today's episode, I'm talking with David Judson Clemmons, solo artist and frontman of a number of bands, including JUD, The Full Bliss, Damn the Machine, and a couple of others that we talk about as well. And there's actually a bit of a story behind this episode. So, this is one of the first episodes that I actually recorded for the podcast all the way back in January of this year. And the interview could have even been earlier because David actually lives in Berlin. And when we were first put in contact together, I was actually in Berlin. But it was a few weeks before I left the city to come back to the UK. I had a dislocated toe and was stressing out about moving back and how I was going to manage all of this. And yeah, things didn't quite work out. But it would have been cool if we could have met in person. But in the end, we ended up chatting in January, and we had a nice little exchange back and forth via email with him talking about some of the music that he's really into and giving me some interesting insights even before we actually had the interview. Whether you are familiar with David's work or not, I think this is a really interesting and insightful interview. And David's one of those people where there really is a long and fascinating story to be told here. So, just as a brief kind of run through of some of the projects and some of the people that David's worked with. So, if the name Ross Robinson rings any bells with you, Ross Robinson would go on to become kind of synonymous with new metal producers, working with Korn and Deftones, amongst others. And he goes way back with David. So they're actually in a band together called Murder Car. That band also featured Dave McLean, future Machine Head drummer. And the interesting connections continue with Damn the Machine, which was a project of Chris Poland, formerly Megadeath guitarist, which David fronted. And the story continues on into various different projects. If you're familiar partly with the story, if you're not familiar, then I think it makes a really fascinating tale. We talk about what is the forthcoming album of David, which is with the working title of Everything a War. And I believe that there are possibly 3 singles that have been recorded from the album, but they are not yet available publicly. I was very fortunate to be allowed to hear some demos. So we actually get into talking about some of the unreleased material. I haven't heard the finished versions of any songs, but yeah, we do talk about some of the demos. So I think that's quite interesting too. And yeah, we talk about the different places that David's been, moving from Virginia, working for quite a long time in LA, talking about his move to Berlin in Germany. And beyond that, I guess you can really hear from David himself. One thing that David did want me to mention, at the time of the interview, he had a website which went under the name judtv.com. It's actually changed to djclemmons.com. But what I've discovered is if you type in judtv.com, you get redirected there anyway. The same goes for his YouTube channel, which you should go and check out and follow. And there are videos online, and I think even there have been some recent videos of previous material that have been posted on there. You can go to his website, which has links to all his social media. You can buy many of his solo albums. I think he's got 5 solo albums that you can buy from Bandcamp, or you can get them from his website. You can contact him directly through social media if you're interested in bundles. You can get some special deals, whether it's CD or vinyl. And he's got a fascinating back catalogue that's gone through various different transformations and changes. Really cool stuff. That's not the most sophisticated of sentences for someone who likes to consider themselves to be a music journalist, but there we are. Check it out, buy some music, support this artist. I'm going to play a clip from Dark Walk Home, which is taken from David's 2018 album Tribe and Throne, which is one of my favorite songs of his. I think it's a cool one to start off the episode with. So I will play the complete track at the end. And there is nothing. Oh, yes, there's one other thing to say. So, a slightly funny incidental story about this episode. When we did this, I had just moved back to the UK and I was all excited because having recorded the first few episodes of the podcast on less than stellar equipment in Berlin because I was moving everything over, I was very excited by the fact that I was going to be able to use my half decent equipment, the equipment that I'm using right now to record this introduction. And then I had a technical issue and I couldn't use it. So you'll notice if you've watched other episodes of the podcast, I'm not wearing these headphones and I don't have this microphone. I have this microphone for anybody who is watching on YouTube. So apologies that the sound quality is not quite as good in the interview, but I don't believe it should detract too much. Anyway, as I often say at this point, I've talked too much. David Judson Clemmons, take it away. So sort of to get a grasp on your early experiences making music. So I understand that you started out in Virginia. You came with this friend of yours who you would
Yeah,
later be in JUD with. You came to LA. You
right.
had this the bit of time where you were kind of looking for a project to get involved in. You got involved with Murder Car, which had Ross Robinson, and it had Dino, who later was in Fear Factory, and that was also
Not
with,
actually.
or
That
he
was a
was.
little bit different. That was actually Dino. They had just jammed together. I'm not sure the actual
Okay.
official project that they were involved in, but Murder Car was officially Dave McLean on drums,
Yeah.
Ross on guitar, and then there was another bass player named Kurt, and I forgot his last name. Kurt. He's on the first demo. You can see it on Metal Blade. And then they got a singer, and then they got Sean to sing, and then Kurt quit, and they asked me to play bass. And so then the album, there is actually an album, and that's me, Ross, Dave McLean, and Sean on vocals. Yeah,
And so you recognized early on that Ross Robinson had this interest in recording, and then pretty quickly he got into the production side of things. And
yeah,
as many people know, he became this big figure associated with nu metal and Korn and various bands like that. So
right.
where does Ministers of Anger fit into this? Because you were in Murder Car. Were you simultaneously in Ministers of Anger with Dave McLean?
Well, that was a recording project, and so just to keep clear about that, so I had three in the end. I think four different recording sessions of just songs that I made up, really in my bedroom with the drum machine, like, and then got Dave McLean to record with me, and that was Ross's idea. I actually said, ask Dave, he'll do it. And I gave him a couple bucks, but I mean, really a couple bucks, like nothing. And that was, yeah, kind of at the same time. But then after I got a little bit more involved with my own kind of project, which that was my project, I got the Murder Car band because of the, yeah, I was bass, I was playing bass. I'm a songwriter, guitar player. And so that was kind of going on at the same time. But then I kind of just quit Murder Car, and then they looked for another bass player, and then I kept going on with my ministers thing, and then but then that bridged over into Damn the Machine quite quickly, actually. And so, if you would like, we can continue, and I can tell you the connection there as well.
For sure. Well, one of the things I wanted to sort of get a handle on as well is, thinking about the arc of the different music that you've been involved with, and obviously after Damn the Machine, there's a few different projects to talk about and
Yeah,
your long solo career. But one of the things I'm interested is it seems like in the beginning, if we're going back to Murder Car, you had several projects that were metal in one way or another.
yeah.
So if I think about the sort of music you're making now, was that more, or was the less metal side of things something that you were always involved with in terms of your songwriting? You know, when you were coming up with songs yourself, were you doing more, I don't know, like rock or folk kind of stuff? Or when you started out, were you like, I just want to do metal,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then you sort of
totally.
changed your mind?
I was a massive metalhead from those that time period because I guess what happened was I was always into bands, yeah, like Maiden and of course Pink Floyd. You know, the basics, Sabbath. That's what I learned to play guitar by playing Sabbath songs and Van Halen songs and Iron Maiden songs, and then Fade to Black flew through my ears. And when I heard Ride the Lightning, Fade to Black, then something clicked. And then with this crunch, this sonic sound of this metal, and not really thrash, that didn't really hit me. And I, like, for example, I didn't really get Slayer. My friends were listening to Slayer, but for some reason, the Ride the Lightning album was what I liked. I liked the melody and the chill bump feeling that you get from these big climaxes and stuff like that. That was really for me, and so that was always what I was kind of going for. And so that totally shaped my songwriting. And I wasn't into folk at all. I never listened to Bob Dylan or anything like that, like I would now maybe. But and so I was really holding on to that. And for me, at that point, it was still really underground. It hadn't gone mainstream yet. But then what happened was, I think I've always been like, I always fight for the underdog. I always kind of like being a little bit against the grain and not being in the mainstream. I really don't like being in the mainstream with my wishes and stuff and what I'm going for. And so then the more and more over those years, so I guess 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, then metal went mainstream, and then it wasn't really, I kind of felt that it was limited a little bit, and then it was like just be heavy and thrashy for no reason. And so then that was really the point when I started listening to other stuff too. So I was listening to Testament, the Indigo Girls, Prince. Like
Mm.
I, I really can just jump around, and I loved it. And I always thought, and that's what the radio should sound like, you know. But people really got locked into their themes, and they didn't get out of them. And I never really liked that much. I mean, I understand it kind of, but I like jumping around. I think that contrast is what's really interesting. And so then that's what happened then in '91 when Ross introduced me and Chris Poland uh, for an audition for Chris's project, because they really wanted to find somebody for Chris's project. And this is now the next project or whatever. But that musically, that's kind of what happened. Was then when I had the chance to then join up with Chris and his brother and Dave Randy, and then we renamed the band Damn the Machine. It was my name. I came up with that, and we have then Chris's kind of, in a strange way, non-metal
Mm.
approach, because Chris Poland is really jazz fusion player that can play metal, that is credited for, one of the biggest thrash albums of all time. But that probably was pushed more from Dave Mustaine than Chris.
Hmm.
And so when we put all of our elements together, then I'm like, well, yeah, fuck it. Then I want to also keep that melody and stuff in there. And then so we came up with this, I think, brilliant twist of styles and Damn the Machine that nobody can ever touch, because it was so weird
Yeah.
coming together with these different ideas. And almost like my weak point, maybe why I never became a metal god, is because on one hand, I don't want to commit completely to it. Yeah, I mean, that's actually the main reason. I don't want to commit to this metal god thing where you have to get the right tattoo and you have to wear the right clothes, and you have to sing the right words, and you have to do all that, because that's really what it is now. You really, to be in that, you have to really be on a straight path. You can go a
Yeah.
little bit off, but you have to still stay in there. You have to have a logo that people can't understand, that they can't read,
Well, see,
and
I
and
think
all and all of that.
that's a really interesting insight, because I think that comes out in Damn the Machine and in your vocal performances in it, that, and this is also something that I think you can hear in your work later on. From time to time, you've got this this powerful rocking kind of grit that you get in your singing, but it's only sometimes. So I think like it's very interesting if we sort of think about some of your recent solo albums. It'll be what I would say is kind of more on the Pink Floyd side, and it'll be more
Oh,
kind of mournful and soaring. And then just from time to time, that hard rock sort of metal edge will come out of it. But maybe going back to the time in Damn the Machine, like you say, with not committing to the metal side of things,
yeah,
there
yeah,
was an aspect of the metal that you were really, really into, but you were never quite comfortable just being a metal guy.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know, and I've the songwriting process, I got kind of started slow. Like I didn't really write proper songs until um the Ministers of Anger kind of period, and then it really developed in Damn the Machine, and then after that, then I had it figured out. And then after Damn the Machine, I became a songwriter. When I was in Damn the Machine, I was like a apprentice. I was figuring it out, you know. And um yeah, and then for me, the idea of that is, and I know that now, and I've kind of always written like that, written songs, is that you have whatever the idea is that starts, it already gives you the next part. You only have to kind of pay attention. I even talk like that when I'm with the band. It's always like, well, I think it wants to go here or it wants to go there, and the song is it, and so if you can kind of stay tuned into that and really be in that zone when you're writing a song, like every song is its own child or whatever, then you're not really able to say, you know, keep it metal or whatever, then, because each part has a dynamic of its own. And I think that happened. I would never have been able to say that 30 years ago, but I can say that now in hindsight, is that that's kind of been my little trick, almost like a secret weapon or whatever, that I think I can do pretty good. And so I let the song kind of find its way. And sometimes I'm like laughing, like, really? You know,
Yeah, this is where
is
you want to
that
go.
what's happening? And I don't know. Have you ever been a Townes Van Zandt fan? Do you know Townes Van Zandt?
From Leonard Skinner.
No, they were Van Zandts, but
Oh,
there's a song.
I've mixed the Van Zants up.
Yeah, yeah, but there's three of them, and but the Townes, as far as I know, is not related to them.
Oh, okay.
Townes died early. He's a songwriter like in the Guy Clark and with in the Willie Nelson
Okay.
made a huge hit of one of his songs, Poncho and Lefty. But they interviewed one of his ex-wives the first time she met him, and I think her quote was perfect for this. She said she heard a voice in her head, and God said, "That's him," and she said, "Oh God, no, please not. That's him." the the voice in her head said, "No, that's definitely him. We got married," she said. And it's kind of like it's out of your control a little bit.
Yeah.
Like a song is out of your control if you completely commit to the song and not to a genre, you know. And that's, I mean, I never achieved huge success. On one hand, I think deep inside, I don't really want that kind of, because it really can fuck your life up, actually.
Yeah.
And for me, I like more to be able to really stay on target and just keep these processes coming through and have enough people, you know, getting some kind of life pleasure from that, that it makes it worthwhile, you know, that it makes it feel like you're doing some kind of a meaningful job. And that's kind of the secret. And that's my songwriting even till now, you know. And I don't think, oh, I need to put some metal in or this or that, or I
Yeah.
kind of think what fits, where is it going, you know.
I think that's a really
Yeah.
interesting insight. And thinking about some of the different projects that you've had, like the Full Bliss or JUD or your solo career, on the one hand, I feel like you can look at the different songs that you've done with those different projects and you can separate them. But there are also other ways in which they sort of interconnect. And I think that it makes sense in terms of what you've just described. You haven't really necessarily said, okay, on this project, I'm going to do this. On this project, I'm going to do this. It's just a matter of
Right.
where it naturally leads to. Before we get into some of those other projects, so there's just one specific thing I wanted to ask you about more with Damn the Machine. When you recorded your album with them, you worked with Brian Malouf, right? The guy that produced, or he worked on Michael Jackson's Bad. And
Yeah.
now,
Yeah, he produced the whole album and mixed it. Yeah.
so what was, like you mentioned, there are various different people who've gone on to be very significant in the music world that you've worked with. Was that at that time, considering how old you were and the experience you had, was that intimidating, or was it just one of these things that you just kind of took it like, well, this is what's happening, so it's happening?
Yeah. Now when I think back, then I can hardly believe it. Right. I'm still in touch with him. He even buys my records multiple times. He orders my records and has written some such incredible stuff to me. He said my music humbles him. He says, I
Oh,
mean,
that's
after
amazing.
Damn the Machine, he says, uh, but at that time we had the choice between him and somebody else, and we were, I think it was Andy Wallace or some producer
Oh
that
yeah.
I don't know. We wanted we wanted to stay live, like we didn't want to be overproduced. We wanted
Mm.
to reproduce what we had already done in the practice room, which we thought was pretty cool. And he really did that well. But at the time, it's like it didn't even phase me. It didn't even hit, that the kind of stuff he had worked on, right? And now when I look back and I can tell my kids, I'm like the same guy. I mean, think it's crazy, yeah.
Yeah,
But
that's pretty
my
crazy.
kids don't care that much either about that. But that's funny how that is with kids. Yeah, you have to hear Bruce Springsteen talk about that. Yeah, that my kids didn't even know I was in a band. Bruce Springsteen said, and then at some point one of his kids asked him what's Seventh Avenue Holdout or something like that, and he said it's one of my songs. And they looked at it on YouTube and said okay, and they never talked about it again.
It's a good way to
And
stop you from your
because
from your ego getting out of control.
yeah, yeah. He said the kids at school asked him about if his dad was Bruce Springsteen. He's like, yeah. And they, wow. He's like, yeah. They really don't care. Yeah. They didn't want to have anything to do with it, he said, Bruce said. But yeah, man, that's what's going on. So
So
yeah.
think
Yeah.
about the sort of the next phase when you went into to Judd. So I guess one of the sort of trivial things I wanted to clarify, the name Judd, does this come
Yeah.
out of Judson, or did you insert Judson into your name because of the band's name Judd?
I know.
What's the origin here?
My grandmother, my grandmother remarried. My blood grandfather died before I was born, and she remarried to an incredible man named Judson Lee Barker. And I was born after that. And my mom, I think it was my mom's idea to take his name as my middle name because he was such a inter, intricate part of our family, although he was second husband, and the only grandfather I ever really knew and spent time with and stuff. And so I'm like really honored to have his name as my middle name. And we called him Judd. And so I kind of stole that nickname because I had the same name, and I was always supposed to, that was going to be my real breakout. I was going to be, Sting, Prince, Madonna, um, Judd, and then upon forming this band, there's a first demo that Ross recorded, by the way, with two other guys and me. But the songs are so bad. The recording is incredible, but the songs are so bad. I don't want anybody to ever hear that. It's terrible. Right after Damn the Machine, before I finally gave up the prog vibe
Mhm.
at that time, and so then I joined up one by one with my two homies, coincidentally from Richmond, Virginia, Steve, who I moved out there with, and Haas, who had moved out there alone, who we never really played with in Virginia, but we knew each other. And we came together and we had this click, man, right away. It was just the timing was perfect. And we could just play together as a trio, and it didn't matter what we did. And everything that came out just seemed to be super cool. And so then we kind of birthed that at that point. That's where the name came from. And then it kind of became a band name. So I later recorded 2 albums with guys from Germany, with my friends from Germany. But
Mm.
to me, it never will never really be Judd without those two. And I've kind of been going back and forth with them, trying to get them to come back together. But they both they had a little problem with each other. They joined another band afterwards with a guy in LA after Judd after we stopped Judd and then they had a little thing with their girlfriends or something and then they're having a hard time hanging out.
Oh, okay, it kind of messed up the dynamic because you
Yeah.
you
So
you had a few releases with Judd, right? And then you had the Full Bliss, and then I think there's like in
right,
2008 there's another Judd record, and then 2016.
right.
So were those with different
Oh wow.
lineups, those two?
Exactly. So the first 4 Judd records were pretty solid. We had a couple little lineup stuff with recording or whatever, but the tours and everything were always so Steve, Hoss, and Dave were always us three. And then I moved to Germany thinking, oh, this is gonna just develop and all of that. And I had already the Full Bliss project started in '97 in Los Angeles. I had some songs on my own, a highly creative time, and I just needed to keep going, keep going. I had all this stuff, and then I met up doing an open mic in Los Angeles. I met a violinist named
Hector
Janice.
Wolff. Oh no, okay, I was thinking of someone different. Sorry, continue.
But she was like the replacement when I moved to Germany, and then and me and Janice became girlfriend boyfriend, and we eventually moved in together for a short time. And then that kind of destroyed that project as well too. How that goes, Fleetwood Mac style. But we're in great. I mean, everything good. She's married with the 2 kids and everything beautiful. And we had a great band. And if I ever went back to LA, everybody would really love to play again. But um, the songwriting together was extremely good and helped go on to a certain thread. And we really had a thing. We were really close to getting something going on that would have maybe taken over everything else that I had done. We had a few different labels that were extremely interested. The REO Speedwagon manager Tom Consolo had came to see us a couple times and was really really hot on us. But then at some point wasn't totally sold, and it was kind of going on all up until the 2000 point, and then I moved to Germany, and then I tried to keep going, and then I had a little bit of a motivation thing where I couldn't really it wasn't the same. It was really different. The adjustment to moving to Berlin, it took me a while to get going, right?
Yeah.
And so then I made 1 album here with my drummer James friend, and then had a band together here, and we made an album. It's called "This Temple Is Haunted," the Full Bliss. However, till this day, I should have never named it the Full Bliss because it's too different and it was different people, and I really shouldn't have. I just didn't want to
Okay.
call it Judd, and I didn't want to call it something else, and so I put the name on it. I'm even considering to remove it completely from the internet and replace it with one that has a different name or my own name or something, or adding my name to it or something like that. Long story short, that was 2000, 2001. Then I got it together, and then I made the solo album Life in the Kingdom of Agreement for in 2003 and 2004. And for me, then I felt like I was really on my solo target, what I really wanted to do. Until now, a lot of people still say that's my best album until now. And then that brings us up to 2004. So
Well,
Judd
that's
was out.
yeah.
Um,
One thing I wanted to ask you about, it seems to me from the outside that between what you were doing with Judd and Full Bliss initially, and then your first solo album, Life in the Kingdom of Agreement, that there was a bit of a gap there, whereas in the past you'd sort of had multiple
yeah.
projects, you had a lot going on. Was this because of the readjustment to
Yeah.
going to Germany that you had a bit more of a gap here?
Yeah. Yeah, I think totally so. It was really like because I went through then a pretty wild phase in from moving from Los Angeles to Berlin. Then I got married, had a son, and I already have a daughter in LA. And then so it was kind of trying to manage everything. Was going back and forth a lot. I was working as like a handyman in Los Angeles to make money because at first it was very easy to go to Los Angeles. I had my car there. A friend was keeping it for me, all my tools. I could work as a handyman in LA for 2 weeks, pay for the whole trip, ticket, everything, and have money left over when I would come back and then switch dollars back into Deutschmark. But then came the euro, and then everything fell apart, and then that relationship, of course, was not ever meant to be. And then from 2004, 2005, things definitely changed. I met Nadia, who is my wife now of many years, and then in 2006 was the big kick. I became sober, and so since 2006, December 2006, I have not had alcohol, and at first it was just a little bit of an experiment, and then as the weeks and the months went by, then I thought, that could really be that little teeny, you know, bit of what you need to have to keep a clear head and all that. Because I had some real down slopes in the period between 2001 and I would say 2006, right? And I tried it, and then it went farther and farther, and then it went to be so long that I said, okay, then I'm really going to stick to it. And so everything that happened after December 2006 was done sober. And so that was the JUD Suffer Boy, and then which was a really nice album, I think. And we did a nice tour as well, but then we kind of I just couldn't keep going. I was doing multiple stuff at the same time. I did in 2006 another solo album, 2005, 2006. And so back to the point of being able to do multiple things at once. Honestly, the whole time when I was living in LA, there wasn't a lot of drinking going on, right? Because everything you had to do, you had to drive everywhere.
Good point.
And you had to work to pay for everything. And so that was a thing about that phase when I moved to Berlin. It was a relief for me, for starters, because you could then breathe a little bit, because I had a support net, support group here where I could kind of fall in and get my thing going. But then, and then one thing led to the next, and then it's too much, definitely too much. And then wasn't productive like I used to be. And that could be one of the factors. One of the biggest factors would be the alcohol, the difference between culture between the United States and Germany. You get everything free, have to drive, and so that went on up until about 2006, and then I was able to become really overproductive again and back to my normal self. And then me and my wife Nadia, we moved in together, and then we had quite a big family, and that became more of a focus for me. And then I have slowed down, I think, but I think raised the quality level. I think it's more what I like to do, but definitely less releases. But I think some of the best stuff, except for Life in the Kingdom of Agreement, which I think kind of held all of that together, all of the darkness and everything that had happened up until that point kind of came out on that album, which I think that's why that album for me is so good. And then and a lot of people can relate to it, like the lyrics and stuff. A lot of people, like I have a lot of single lonely people that come to the concerts like from that, right? And they stand in the corner and they're just happy just watching and like, please play, the songs from that album and stuff. But then after that, I think I kind of got more in my groove. One of my best friends and the best mentors and almost a muse in a way, an incredible guitarist and bass player. He played with me since I met him in 2001. He's been on and off in my projects and recordings. Jan Hampeke, a German guy, but incredible. He teaches guitar as well, like I do, but he's been doing it for like 20 years. And he told me, because I would always come to him, man, I have to decide, JUD, full bliss solo. What am I doing? It's too much going on, and everything's coming out here and there, and it's all confusing for the fans and all that. And at some point he said, actually, Dave, I think you do your best work when you're doing 2 or 3 things at the exact same time. He says, from me looking over your history, he says, I think that's when you're the strongest. He said, so actually, don't change anything. Just keep doing what you're doing and don't feel guilty about it. And he told me that, and I'm like, okay, that kind of makes sense. So then I'll just keep all these project names, and when it's time, then I just throw one that way or throw one that way or throw one that way. And that kind of helped me to at the beginning of Corona to get back in touch with the Damn the Machine guys, because I'm like, well, actually, it's a free country, it's a free world, we can do what we want. And so I just rebuilt that from scratch on one of my old refurbished computers,
Yeah.
made with the old cassette demos a whole new image genre promotion campaign, and all of a sudden I had all of these sales and emails from all these happy people. It was incredible. And that was in 2021, was it?
Yeah, that I think
20.
that's what I remembered it being. Yeah.
But I'm really easy to get off the point, because it's like you're asking questions that go back so far, and oh man, I try to keep my answers short, but it's so hard. Yeah.
No,
Sorry.
it's all very interesting insight. Maybe if I can ask you a couple of things connecting to some of the more recent work. So when we were going back and
Yeah.
forth a little bit before with the emails, you brought up Tribe and Throne as being
Right.
another standout for you, and I think it really does also stand out as being one of your most powerful releases. And something that
Ah,
I was
cool.
kind of thinking about, and I wonder if you feel it all similar. When I listen to your different projects, I listen to the progression of your different solo work. Feels like that from around about 2018, I think you had a track Cherokee, and then you had Tribe and Throne, and then you had Lights for the Living. There's a
Yeah.
certain kind of, I don't know quite how to characterize it, kind of like a brooding aspect to the music. It's dark and it's powerful without being metal and without even being kind of overtly guitar rock. And I was thinking it's really interesting to think about the different types of music you've done. You know, you start out in metal, and obviously a lot of people when they think of metal, they think like this is as heavy as it gets. But I feel like in
Right.
a way with these recent releases, there's a certain kind of emotional heaviness and a sort of a
Right.
power that you didn't have before, but you're not
Yeah.
doing it through metal. And I wonder, did you have that feeling with this recent phase of music that you were tapping into something that maybe you hadn't really um, been in the past in terms of your music?
Yeah. Well, I really like that. With Tribe and Throne, and like you said, Cherokee too. That started with the album JUD Generation Vulture, the 2016 album. That track was recorded for that album, but we
Okay.
dropped a couple tracks off because it was it was enough. As my mastering friend said, you have to hold a little bit back. Don't give them too much. And so that kind of started there, and it could be that the Generation Vulture was the beginning of kind of what you were talking about, where what I figured out about myself was that I could do with vocals so much that I never really tapped into before, right?
Hmm.
That I could sing lower, I could sing higher, I could double my voice, I could sing three-part harmonies, but not to sound like, birds singing, but to make it sound like The Hobbit. I always call, that. I don't know if you watch Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, but
Hmm.
there's this one song where they sing the Mountain King or something like that. And I was in the theater and it was like, and thought, oh, that's fucking heavier than anything, right? And it's all just voices, right? Just low voices in harmony. And so then I thought, okay, embrace that. And I was recording. I don't know if you know in all of this, but I had an antique shop in Berlin
I do
for
know about
12
this,
years.
yeah. Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if that was
Ah,
still an ongoing thing.
yeah, that I closed that at the beginning of the Corona time. But the thing about the Tribe and Throne, because they always say, with the doors opening and closing, the Tribe and Throne album was like the closing of the antique store door. I'd been in Berlin I had the shop where I was there on my own. I had my workshop there. I'm selling antiques, always talking to people. And then the practice room was kind of close by. I wrote the songs there, went and with a great drummer Thomas, and recorded in his practice room, but with the good stuff with Mac and good mics and everything. He knows what he's doing. That's why it turned out pretty good. We recorded that kind of live, and then I was able to really practice the vocals, and record the vocals myself on that same Windows XP computer for Tribe and Throne. That was the first time when I really sat there, and man, this is funny. I actually sat in the back of my antique shop and I could see the window because you couldn't just come in. The people had to knock on the door, right? And so I had the headphones, the mouse, and I was recording the vocals. And at the same time, I had my eye on the door in case some customer was coming, right? And so I would, in between recording, jump up and deal with customers and then come back. And then the whole time I was doing the vocals for that album, right? And until now, I think those are actually the most solid vocals that I ever did. It's like
They're
so,
great.
so
I
good.
would never have known that you had that kind of
Yeah,
conflicted moment with them.
yeah. But this part is funny, so I got to tell you this. So the drummer Thomas, he's in a really big German band called the Beatsteaks. You may even have heard of the Beatsteaks
Not sure.
when you were living here. They play Wuhlheide, and I mean they play the big places, right? They're like the biggest German rock band, except for I'd say Die Ärzte and some of these other bands. But he's like, well, when you do the vocals, he said, send me all your vocal tracks, and I'll cut a line and clean them for you and send them back, so that the ends and the beginnings are all nice and tight. Because yeah, I guess he does that for his band too. And so I did that, right? And there's one song, if you know this song, is it called Servants? I don't even know the names of my songs anymore.
Yeah.
And it's over and over. I'll satisfy machine, over and over and over, right? I'll satisfy machine. And there's long break and then again. And he called me and he said, man, I just pissed myself laughing. He said, I was in bed at night and I was cleaning your vocal tracks. And in between these long breaks, you could hear somebody knocking on the door really loud. And I couldn't hear it because I had the headphones on. And it kept getting louder and louder between the breaks of the song. And he said, you didn't hear it because you just kept going, and I could hear that. And then I figured out later what it was. It was the DHL delivery guy trying to deliver something. And after I was done, at some point I had a note in the mailbox from the delivery guy, right? And it was like putting all those things together later, figuring it out. But he said that he could hear that while he was trying to clean the vocal tracks, and he said he just laughed his ass off. He couldn't believe it. He said that was the funniest thing. Yeah. So that's what happened. And this brooding thing, what you're talking about, it's really nice that you noticed that, because actually, you could probably give my wife credit for that, because during the whole process of me being here, going through the first dark phase, becoming sober, meeting my wife, learning how to be responsible and doing more and more and more, and learning that, because when you're younger, you think, oh, if you have a job, you can't be a real rock and roller. If you have kids, you can't be a real rock and roller. And then at some point when it clicks and you think and you realize that actually the point is to actually be good at everything and make sure that every single thing you're doing that you're good at, and then you're going to find ways to connect these things emotionally, and at some point that clicked with me. And I have this little theory where I don't know, did you ever work on old cars or anything like that? Did you ever have this, old muscle cars where guys like, they change it, right?
I wish I had that connection. I don't know if you know,
Yeah.
this is to go off on a tangent. If you know the book Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance by Robert Pirsig, and it's this
No.
philosophy book, and this might be connected to what you're talking about. He talks about the kind of the value that you get of being involved in repairing something and being part of this mechanical process and being connected to it, and not just kind of coming from the outside and going, oh, this thing works, and then you ride away in it. So
Yeah.
you make me think of that, but unfortunately, I've never had that personal connection.
Right. And so I love fixing things. I've always liked repairing things, and I loved working on cars when I was younger and stuff, and then and guitars and stuff too. But lately, I don't work on guitars. I just play them, and they're super dusty. But like there's this back to stock thing. Like if you have if you would buy like a 69 Chevrolet Camaro or something that somebody had, totally fucked up and destroyed and put stupid shit on it and all that, then the idea was, yeah, I'm going to put it back to stock, man, which means you're going to just exactly like it was, because it was perfect. When it was new, it was perfect. And I have that theory about like everything, right? And I even tried to explain it to my wife and sometimes to my friends, and it's really difficult to put into words. But for me, every problem that happens and every situation that happens, like whether it's in a business or with your neighbor or with fixing something that's broken physically on your house or your whatever, your radio or whatever, or just not knowing what to do because there's like different groups of people want to do this or that politically or whatever and all of that. For me, there's always like this theory of put it back to stock, man. Like find the connection to the soil because we started from the earth. A tree grows, it dies, the bugs eat it, whatever. There's like a connection to like this old natural like phenomenon that is life itself. And if you can find a way to follow any problem back, and cut out the middleman. You take out all of the unnecessary shit that's causing this to be complicated, and keep going and keep going and keep going, and you're going to find at some point the simple formula where that'll make it that you can solve the problem. And at some point that kind of clicked in this time period with me, and I felt this really weird freedom at the beginning of the Corona time, a little bit before that, and then at the beginning of the Corona time, I felt this like new wave of like there's no limits there's to what anybody can do. And of course it's cliche saying those kinds of things, but it was really it clicked, and somehow it clicked, and I felt more and more that like if I really concentrate on this hard enough in a positive way and not thinking, oh, I really want that, I need to have that, you think more, how can this help humanity, other people? If I do this, maybe I'll do this, or I'm going to pick that up, I'm going to do this, I'm going to fix that, I'm going to do that job, although I didn't make any money at it, because I know it's going to have an effect somewhere. And all of this, like, really, it just hit me like a bam right in the head. And that was the time when I figured out that I could do with Tribe and Throne what I was doing. And it really, from that point on, and then the Damn the Machine, the 2 re-releases, and then I'm writing stuff on my own at the same time. And then Lights for the Living was a little bit, we can talk about that. But all of that kind of clicked at that time. And that's what I wanted to try to put into some kind of words, as this back to stock, trace everything back to the soil and stay on your thumbprint. What is your job, and don't go off of that. Don't veer from that. Yeah.
Well, I think
that's how I think.
Yeah. What I take from what you've just said there, I think there's a really significant point of how we can get caught up in what we think we're supposed to do or what we need to do, or the things that we think are going to be valuable for us. But I guess it's in a way, it's kind of like letting go. You can sort of let go of the things that you have the idea are going to be valuable for you, and just kind of like focus on what's important.
That's the lyric in the song. Yeah, that the let go is weird. Strangely enough, in the first song on Lights for the Living, there's like a little spoken word part in the middle, and that's it. That's before the next part comes. I just say let go, and that's exactly what I meant. Yeah, exactly. That's the feeling, right? Because always like hands holding on tight to everything.
Yep. Well, I definitely want to talk a little bit about what you're working on at the moment. And thank you so much for sharing with me. It's a really great privilege to have you let me hear songs that are in process. And I wanted to give you a little bit of my thoughts of what I've heard, and ask you a couple of questions about that. But maybe before we get onto that, we could just briefly talk about Lights for the Living. So what was the process of that like? You actually made that during the COVID time? Because one of my sort of observations from listening
Yeah.
to it is it still has a continuation, I think, of the tribe and throne sound. But one of the things I picked up from it is I felt there was a certain kind of fragility to it. And I wondered if there was a sort of a sense of the world collapsing because of what was going on with the uncertainty of COVID at the time that you were making that maybe came into the record.
Yeah, I only actually believed in COVID 6 months, maybe until maybe a year. You know, we were walking around holding our breath and doing all that bullshit that other people were doing too. But then after a while, I started to get the feeling that everybody was overcooking it, and it really did look like that the freedoms of the people were so close to being like in Germany. They had on the board to take away the kids, you know, from people that didn't want to get vaccinated, and that it was like really quickly escalating.
Yeah, it
And
got very
so,
extreme.
yeah, and then and so I definitely had a lot of different views during that time with that. But the thing about that is like I said, I always follow the song idea, right? And then what happened here was that I, after getting the whole day done, I had a I closed my antique shop, and then I bought a house from one of these steck. You put them together. It's 5 meters by 5 meters. It's like a garden house. We call it in German a garden house.
Okay.
So you can get them for like 3 or 4 thousand bucks. You build it up, and it's 25 square meters. It's pretty cool. You know, it's not insulated or anything, but I mean, you can really work in it and do stuff in it. And so what I did this, and this was like my new workshop. I put it in my backyard, and then I made a 1/3. I made a little dividing wall in there, and put my little recording studio in there where I could practice and play and stuff. But of course, in the winter, it's -10 or whatever, 15 here, and it was really hard to get it warmed up, and so it was always freezing out there. And I had this one heater on the wall, and I would sit in front of it and play guitar and try to come up with these ideas because I was inspired. It was really inspiring because we were at home, we couldn't go anywhere, there's nothing to do. And then after months and months and months and months and months of this, I like to say a culture was born. It was a certain culture of these like online kind of events that people were doing because you couldn't do concerts, you couldn't go into public and stuff. And so this online culture, Corona culture, kind of built itself up and all that. And I kind of did some live streams and stuff, and had a little bit, was getting into thinking, wow, this could be really cool. It's good for me because I have like one fan in Japan, one fan in New Zealand, and it's like it's cool to then you can have them all together in one stream or something. But then then I was like, okay, started coming up with different ideas. And at that point, I had already re-released the two Damn the Machine albums, or the first one, Day One for sure. And I had gotten so much positive reaction from that it gave me another feeling that, okay, this party you're playing also has to be in. And so I came up with some kind of riffs and stuff, and that actually I was thinking were going to be Damn the Machine songs. And then I kind of took them back to myself, and Chris Poland, I had even sent him some already, and he really liked the last song, the Sea of N song. He really liked that song. He said it reminded him of a nice Pink Floyd song.
I really like that one
And
too.
but cool. But in the end, I said, okay, Damn Machine new album. That's definitely not happening, and I'm not going to let these songs sit. So I have keep them all. And but the recording process of that album was totally different. Like the Tribe and Throne, we recorded the songs live as a trio in the practice room, the drummer's room, recorded them there. And this time I recorded everything to a click. I was being experimental myself. I made all the songs first. I sent that to my drummer, and he recorded the drums to my guitars. We never met. It was during the lockdowns. We never met. And then we decided on everything. Everything was cool, edited stuff down, and then went to the practice room. And then he said, because I had played bass on everything already, and he said, "Why don't you get Earl Grey from Tribe and Throne to play bass?" I said, "Actually, I was trying to keep it simple, but if you think it would be better, let's do it." I asked Earl. He said, "Yes, okay." We did it. So then he overdubbed the bass to the drums, which are overdubbed to the guitar, everything in the wrong order.
Uh,
Um, but it kind of works. But that's what happened. But what you're talking about is more the content and the feeling, right? And so I wasn't really thinking I want to write a dark and negative album or something like that. Like but you couldn't hide from those vibes, and then the inspiration was coming from real life. Uh, You'll learn to walk alone. Uh, yeah, I have to go through those lyrics a little bit too, and revisit them a little bit too, because I've lost a little bit. I haven't listened to that album as much. I like Tribe and Throne better, so I always listen to Tribe and Throne. But um, it definitely was. Yeah, I mean, it was under a cloud, kind of written
yeah.
under a cloud in a dark, cold room, everything in the wrong order, and I think that I'm happy that it came out, but I think if I would have the chance to do that again, there was a couple acoustic kind of ideas and stuff that would have maybe went in between, and it got a little bit short in the end because the drummer said no, you should not put those acoustic songs on there, and I'm like, okay, I just trusted him. But in the end, I think I would have liked to have had it be a little bit more. Um, Not just the six heavy songs, because I think it doesn't breathe enough. I
Mm.
think it's too tight. And the other thing is, it's the first album that I mixed myself,
Hmm.
and I mixed it, and I thought it was perfect. And then I gave it to my mastering guy. My mastering guy said, "You know what? I need to have the stems
Hmm.
because the levels are too off." And so then I mixed him like 8 or 10 stems, so everything's separate. So kick, snare, toms, um, guitars, bass, vocals, backups, synths, and I gave him everything, and then he mastered. He did a great job on it. But I think he also used like some reverb removal tools and shit like that. And the end result, what he gave me, sounds sonically perfect. But I think it lost the warmth that I had put in it in my original mixes. Although my original mixes were really reverby, there was a lot of, it sounded like, I don't know, Interpol or something. That was just a lot of reverb on, extra reverb on stuff. So in the end, not one of my favorite albums. I still lean on Litkoa, Life in the Kingdom of Agreement, Tribe and Throne, some of the older albums too. Chasing California, I think is really good. And so I'm really excited to kind of move on and kind of correct the last one with the new one. But it got more airplay on the radio show Radio Eins in Berlin than
Hmm.
any of my other stuff. One of the songs, it's called Berlin, of course.
Yeah.
And the video got a lot of action online, but it's kind of a long song. Sea of Ends is minutes something. So yeah. Um, Yeah, I'm not. You hear my voice goes down a little bit when I talk about the Lights for the Living album, because I had a higher expectations from it.
Mm.
I thought it was going to be the one that could then really elevate, because I kept it tight and clean, and it was really, there was no extra fat, and it was had a couple great songs on it. And but in the end, I think that what I'm doing now, well, maybe you have something to say about that, but I think I'm on to another little wave now, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to pull off what we did with the demos when
Yeah.
we record in the studio. And so, yeah, that's Lights for the Living. I mean, a
Well,
dark time. Yeah.
based on what I've heard, and of course, what you've shared with me are just demos, but I can definitely give you my impression of what I've heard. The
Okay.
Now, is this what I've got here is there's Everything a War, Rogue Humanity, Songs to Those Who, When We Learn.
Right.
Is there another one as well? Have you decided on an order of tracks, or is that still to be
Oh
decided?
no, the order, if it's different, there's a particular order where that they sound so good together, right?
Mm.
And until now, we have When We Learn to Resist or Learn to Resist as the opening song. Um, and After that, I think Rogue Humanity, and then songs for those songs in the key of you, because the titles always
Yeah.
change around a lot. But there are two more songs.
Yeah, you're right. I think
Uh,
maybe I just didn't take notes on all of them, but Songs in the Key of You, I remember that one as well. And
I'm
um,
gonna.
The Caves Below, The Caves Below,
Yeah, that's another one.
and the End Drones.
Exactly. Drones and Satellites will be the title of that one. And so we have six songs, and the order is not decided, and but the style I think is pretty close. Um, um, I'm gonna kind of try to recreate the same feeling, but I'm very interested to know what you have to say because there's still some work to be done. Yeah.
Well, I think in terms of the tracks that hit me the most emotionally, I would
Yeah.
say Everything a War and When We
Right.
Learn. What I really
Yeah.
love in Everything a War is I think it demonstrates a tendency that you sometimes have in your music where it's like it wants to soar, but it's
Yeah.
also very downbeat as well. It's almost kind of like a certain kind of Pink Floyd element with maybe something you could compare to like the darkness of Alice in Chains.
Right.
Um, and with When We Learn, um, again, interestingly enough, I think a little bit like what you mentioned with Sea of Ends, there's a little bit of a sort of a metal touch to it. If there's kind of
Yeah.
like some palm muting in the guitars,
Yeah.
um, but there's a moment in the song where the bass moves up, and then there's a vocal line that goes
Yeah.
kind of offset against the bass, and there's just something about that that
Yeah.
really like it really got me. So little things like that,
Ah,
it really connected with me, and yeah, it gave me little tingles in those tracks,
nice.
which I thought
Nice.
was very, very cool. So there's some definite emotional power in there. And also going back to some of the comments I made about your vocal styles, I like how there are these different elements of what you do. There's some of the mournful soaring, there's some of the rock grit in it. You move between these different elements in what I think is a very effective and a very organic kind of way.
Cool. Yeah, that was definitely one of my favorite songs. I really like it, and the original version was twice as long. We
Okay.
um we we shortened that down quite a lot, right? So a lot of the parts that happen only once were going like eight times and stuff, and it was really long. And my drummer was like, "Yeah, it's too long, man. You got to shorten it, shorten." And then so I like made a wild edit just to see. I'm like, "Yeah, 6 minutes. That's crazy, crazy." And then we were all listening, and we all loved it so much. We're like, "Okay." And then we had to learn to play it like that, and it was really stressy because it was really relaxed before because it was just went on forever, and you
Yeah.
always had time to get ready before the next change would come and stuff. And then it was like we were all trying to, what's next, what's next, what's next, because there's one part in there that sounds the same, it repeats, right, but it's in two different keys, like at one time it's in C, and then the other time it's in A. It modulates, and so
Mm.
it's not like A minor and C major. It's like it's really, I think it's A major and C major. I have to listen to that and check that again. And I tune down a half step, so it's always really freaky when we try to figure out what notes we're playing, what the notes really are, right? And but that was the story of that song. And Songs in the Key of You was a riff I made up teaching guitar, which is also a new development in my life now, is because I've been teaching guitar now for more than a year. So I have between 30 and 40 students, mostly kids, every week. and I give them stuff to play and different things. Sometimes I make up my own stuff to give them, and then I'm sometimes learning other songs. And that was a riff that I just made. I'm like, oh, you have to practice D major, and look, you can do it in the same form in 3 different positions, and look how good it sounds. And I'm like, damn, yeah, that sounds really great. In fact, I'm going to use that. And so that's where that song came from.
I think that's also another very memorable melodic hook that you've got in that one. And also in terms of like the music altogether, I think there's some really cool variety in there from what I heard. Like Rogue Humanity is almost like a kind of a post-punk kind of element. Like I was trying to pinpoint what it was it reminded me of. It was almost like a bit like Killing Joke in terms of the rhythm section.
Yeah.
And Songs to Those Who, or no, sorry, is that no, I'm getting mixed up. Is that Songs in the Key of You? I've written that down wrong.
The 80s kind of funny Devo punky sounding song is Rogue Humanity.
Yeah.
And then the Songs in the Key of You, I guess, will be the title of that. That's the one that has that really nice major guitar part.
It's got something, and I've been trying to pinpoint what this is, and I'm thinking in a way this maybe touches on like a broader influence of yours, because I feel like there's something kind of poppy, there's something very melodic, and I can't put my finger on what it is. Like I can recognize the Pink Floyd in your music, but I feel like there's something else that has a big influence in you and your melodies, and I can't pinpoint what it is. Is there anything that stands out to you that's been a big influence that we haven't mentioned yet?
Well, I really am. I'm a huge fan of beautiful melodies. Like I've for very, 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 very long time, some of my favorite music to listen to, like desert island stuff, is like Prince, Bjork debut, even some of the other Bjork albums, Tori Amos, Sigur Rós, and I don't listen to Metallica or Testament. I don't listen to metal. I listened to Nick Cave for a really long time, but then I also kind of don't listen to Nick Cave anymore, and I like more and more this chill bump effect, right? And I love when melodies give you this chill bump effect. And for me, if a song doesn't have that, then for me it's not acceptable. Kind of like for me, almost every song I ever made at some point has to have this hopeful little light that pops up that gives you this feeling. And the thing is, my drummer said to that song, he said, I don't know why, but it reminds me of a Sting song. And I never listened to Sting. And he said, there's this one Sting song, and it was like some unknown song, and he played it for me. Like, I never heard it. And he said, yeah, but don't you hear it? It's like, and it's not the same notes or anything like that. Yeah. He said, but from feeling, he said, it's like that. And then he played it for his mom, and his mom said that too. And I'm like, that's really freaky.
You're unconsciously channeling Sting.
She said the same thing. And I'm like, how can that be? The songs has nothing to do with each other. And so there must be some kind of a weird crossover there. But I mean, the music that I listen to, I like, for a while I was really into Bright Eyes, and then I burned out on that. And there's some albums that I really like there's a Rilo Kiley. I don't know if you ever heard of that. There's the debut album from Rilo Kiley, a little bit connected to the Bright Eyes, kind of this label, but then kind of off, not really the same people. But this first album has the greatest melodies, really. And lately my daughter is a huge fan of Taylor Swift, and so Taylor Swift is playing nonstop in our house. If anybody walks away from the Spotify app, then she's on it. And actually, there's some learning pop songs with my students. It helped me to not miss out on a great melody. If there's a melody possible, then and the thing about that song, and also with the songs on this album, it's like all in all, like what you talked about that brooding and all of that. And I've always trying to think about, what style do I fit into and all of that. And now because I'm 57 now. and I'm kind of like, I don't know how many more albums I'll be able to make. I don't know, we don't really know. I mean, I've kind of done enough already, and now everyone is like a bonus. And I'm thinking back on the amount of music that I've made and the songs that I've made and all of that, and I'm kind of thinking like, well, it's actually your style now. It's kind of like you kind of have the DJC style, and you don't have to try to. I hardly ever did that anyway, but you don't really have to try to fit into any of these. Try actually more to be directly on target, back to the songwriting point. And I think the songs in the key of you idea is really me playing a couple things that maybe I would have been afraid to do years ago because it's almost like too simple or too melodic and too happy and major. And then comes the chorus where I'm screaming a little bit or whatever, and then kind of correcting that. But that song stays pretty positive throughout, and I think that's an effect of wanting to not be caged in, by metal tattoos or whatever. Like to, not going pop. I've actually had in my career songs that are maybe a bit more pop than I would have wished to release on the Yes Sir album. There's a couple on there, but this time it's a bit more on, like I said, just trying to embrace my own wishes and my thumbprint, like saying, trying to stay on my path of what I was put here to do. And that organic thing is really important to me because I don't want to, I would rather be just at the level I'm at and be able to keep doing what I'm doing. It's totally great. I don't need to have more. But it's okay. Like I said, if there's a bit more, if there's a bit more fans coming, I won't complain.
I think, organic is the word there. There's nothing that comes across like you've decided, oh, I need to make something that sounds happy, or I need to make something that sounds poppy. It's just, if that's the direction things are going to go, then that's fine. It's nothing to be embarrassed about, to have something that has like a little bit of sunshine in it. So thinking about this material you're working on, what have you kind of got figured out in terms of, when you want to do recording? Do you have an idea of when you want the album to come out? And what's the best way for people to follow you and to keep in touch with what you're doing, and maybe keep track of shows that are coming up, for example?
The plan is next month we have studio booked already for February 17th and the 18th. And the plan is we will record the 3 songs that we just talked about. So Learn to Resist, Songs in the Key of You, and Everything a War, which actually is titled The Old World Is Gone.
Okay.
The album title should be Everything a War. That's actually what's kind of on the final block now for me, at least from my perspective. That's what I want it to be. And the album probably, if I'm lucky, would come out by the end of the year. The delay has come mostly from my side because we haven't been able to get into the studio, but now we're booked. Now we're going to do it. Yeah, at least the first 3 songs, and then we'll make one more session, and that'll be the second half. And then I'll probably mix some stuff in between, some acoustic stuff. What we talked about, Dreamboat Annie.
Yeah.
Man, did you didn't watch the live video from the 70s of Crazy on You, did you?
No, I haven't seen it, but I'll check it out.
I mean, it is just, I just can't believe how good they are. I mean, and then on top of that, they did a Kennedy Center Honors concert, I think. That American Kennedy Center where they always do these awards where they have Led Zeppelin there and all that. And I think it was there where they played, and that's only about 10 years ago, when the 2 sisters and maybe some of the band, I don't know, played the same song, Crazy on You, again. And it's fucking perfect. Perfect vocals. I mean, that is incredible. I mean, she's an old Oma. She's huge. I mean, and she sings like, fuck, man, that is incredible. And it's almost 40 years later or something like that.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And I mean, that is not easy. I mean, that song is not easy to sing. But the album, the reason I was hooked on that is that it has all these little interludes, and I love that.
The little transitions.
Yeah, but you don't get it when you listen to tracks, when you only listen to single tracks. And
Yeah.
so
No, I totally understand. I'm old enough to really appreciate an album and the
yeah,
flow of an album. None of this just picking out whatever tracks in whatever order you want. Like an
yeah.
album is a thing that should be crafted with care and consideration.
Yeah, I mean it's something that is part of our cultural existence when we grew up that is kind of hanging on now a little bit because of the LP, I guess. That's kind of the only thing that is holding that album concept together, right? And yeah, and it's like a shame when you think you kids, you don't know what you're missing, you know? You don't know what you're missing to crack that open and listen from beginning to end for the first time and experience it and that you can't turn on the radio and get that. You are have it in your hand and you put it on your own record player. And if it comes on the radio, maybe they play one or two of the songs, but to listen to the whole album, you have to buy it and you have to sit there and fucking listen to it. And therefore you get the appreciation that you will never get anywhere else. And they're not experiencing that, it's
Well,
yeah.
look, these things can come around. We have trends, but nothing is irreparable. So,
Yeah, yeah.
we just gotta you just gotta keep fighting the good fight.
Yeah,
Now,
the LP is incredible. The staying power of the LP is
yeah.
incredible, actually.
Now, David, look, I think I need to let you go now, but thank you so much for your time. Thank you again for letting me hear the
Well,
tracks in progress. I'm really, really looking
absolutely.
forward to hearing the singles when they come out. And
Cool.
yeah, I'll be keenly following what goes on with the forthcoming album. So yeah.
Oh yeah, and I needed to tell you. I mean, basically, where the address, web address.
Yep.
I mean, the few things that really help, of course, abos, abonnement, subscriptions on my YouTube channel. If you want something short and easy,
Mhm.
JUD TV
Mhm.
is very good because I have judtv.com as my web address,
Yep.
and I also have JUD TV as my YouTube channel.
Okay.
And so just JUD TV actually is already enough. And if you go to my web, then you've got all the links. You have Bandcamp, you know. But physical product, man, that's the way I sell a bundle, man. I'll sell 10 CDs for $100. I've got 5 LPs, and I'm really happy. And if you mention that anywhere, you can always tell people, feel free to ask for a bundle deal. They can message me on social media or if they buy one album, I will definitely reply to them, for example. So they'll have a direct communication to me.
I will definitely let it be known.
Sweet, man.
David, thank you so much.
Yeah, excellent, Tom. It's a pleasure. Ciao, man. Okay.
Ciao.
Ciao, man.
Feed your mind, it's time for another day to end. Chose to
path. Maybe I can use this.